you can give birth to your own father. So I decided I wanted to look over more of the story going on in the game, besides just using the game as footage for my talkovers, my voiceovers. That's the word. That's the proper term. So with this time, we're looking at Obrick and his story, which it coincides pretty well with an idea I had for the eventual Morrowind playthrough, because I was thinking with that one, it would be some sort of a knight who was sent to prison for some reason, and eventually they would end up, losing their abilities and such, explaining why, and in a lot of RPGs actually, that's a thing I could talk about is leveling systems in RPGs. You rapidly ascend to power. Not a lot of games really explain why. I was working on a tabletop game myself that explained why the players were able to advance in skills so quickly, but that's a topic for another episode. We're on to Obrick. So, some backstory for people who haven't played the game, and because I cut out a bunch of the footage and other story bits, because I'm now doing 2 hours of footage per episode, and since I only record about 15 minutes, that's cutting out an hour and 45 minutes or so of footage. I cut out basically the first hour that I recorded. So, his little backstory, he was a knight of a king from Eisenberg, until he was eventually betrayed by some twink named Earhart. Like, I saw, he was, when they showed Earhart, I was like, oh, standard Final Fantasy twink. I wonder what he's going to sound like. But he actually sounds fairly masculine. And I'm like, that's not the worst. But yeah, Obrick, the Unbending Blade, I think was his title, or his battle name. And he was really good at not getting fucked up, is the best way I can describe it. He went to, I think it was with like 5 dudes. I deleted that footage, but yeah, it was like 5 dudes he held off before reinforcements came. Though, like, lore-wise, there might have been 50 dudes. You know how it is with games. So after the betrayal, and Earhart pulling his secret maneuver that he never showed Obrick during their training together, which I vaguely remember hearing something about Obrick and one of his former knights having, like, a thing, a little bit of homoeroticism. And I don't know if it's going to end up being Earhart. I think it's somebody that was actually a friend or something, but I can see it being Earhart. That's a lot. A lot of people in JRPGs do that kind of a thing. But yeah, he ends up running around as a hedge knight, and then eventually winds up living in some highland town, like sheep and mountains and rocks. Very Scottish area. I'm actually surprised they didn't give the people there Scottish accents. And listen, we already got bad Shakespeare. We can do with a little bit of bad Scottish. Actually, weren't some of the Shakespeare plays were like set in Scotland, I think. Macbeth, probably. I need to re-up my Shakespearean education. But yeah, he just ends up being the local town's militia trainer guy. Because I think there's like a captain of the guard, and it's not Obrick, so he's not that guy. I can't remember if they give him an official town title. I think he's just kind of the guy that trains people and gets to live there for free, basically. Which, from like, I don't know if knights errant were really like that big of a thing, or just more of a romanticized idea of a thing. Sort of like, oh hell, what other it was like it was Polish or something. They had some sort of some Eastern Europeans, they had some sort of like knight errant type. They had their own name for it. And of course, from wuxia type stuff from China, I believe, their wandering warrior art. Every culture basically has a wandering warrior. It just depends on if they actually fucking existed or not. I mean, we know that cowboys and shit existed. It's just that, actual shootouts were pretty rare. Like the OK Corral was 1 in a million encounters kind of a thing, where it's just like, man, I think, what was it, 3 guys died? And that was like a lot of dudes in that time to die in a gunfight. Because normally it was just like 1 dude dying or something. And it wasn't always, like, they were civilized to the point where I think it was White Earp. White Earp had a, for reference, because people don't know a whole lot about the Old West, he had a favorite ice cream shop, which implies the existence of more than one ice cream shop in town. Because, I believe ice cream sundaes were a way to get around the don't drink on Sundays thing or something like that, where it was like, it was an indulgence you could engage in. And from that, people would, or that might be a later thing, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, ice cream existed at the time, people liked it, White Earp liked it, so everybody talking shit about big macho men eating their iced creams can go fuck themselves. Let's see, what else is on my notes? Alright, after the Scottish. Yeah, there was like a lady that had a Minnesotan voice again, so I don't know if it's just like maybe like one per town, or it's just the same voice actors. It might even be the same lines, I'm not exactly sure. It would have been nice to... Maybe there is just a town where everybody talks like they're from Minnesota. I don't know. I don't think we've... There are like... What is it? There's probably... Yeah, there's at least one more town per person, because everybody needs to go to a town. I know that I think 2 of them are overlapping. I want to say Therion and Ophelia are going to the same place. Not sure. I'm currently at the point in the game where I'm just kind of going around, and I might get the secondary jobs so that my dudes can have more abilities, which would be really nice. Or I might wait until I get their max skill. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look into how the secondary classes work. I'm not sure if it takes XP from the core class or how it works. I know that I'm nearing the point where I get the divine skills, or whatever they call them. Which the one for... There's a few of them that are like really good sounding, / really good from what I've read online. Like the, oh, hell. Tressa. Hers is just raw damage, no element, and whatever damage she deals gives her money, but in exchange for like a good chunk of SP. But then again, she has a thing that halves the amount of SP that she uses, so instead of 30 it would be 15, which isn't a huge deal. I'd have to find some way to boost her physical attack. I've heard that Thief is a good secondary class for her, so I might make her go Thief, which is ironic. She doesn't like thieves. But that would give her daggers and... Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into what would be the best way to get her to do physical damage. I'm assuming she's hitting them with one of her weapons or something. So, let's see. So yeah, like I was saying, the Morrowind character I was working on, even before I got into Oberic, was a knight that would end up getting arrested for some reason and being sent to prison. So that story has slowly evolved over the last 3 days, and to the currently, the plan for Morrowind is that the Narrow Varine is going to be a knight from a city in Daggerfall, or a kingdom in Daggerfall, rather, because that's the important thing, is that, oh hell, should I give a crash course on some Elder Scrolls lore? I probably should, for people that didn't play the Elder Scrolls. Okay, so, Daggerfall, picture, like, Celtic influences in just your standard fantasy. Standard fantasy being more like British, like the UK kind of fantasy, where, like, you know, it's a little bit like Arthurian sort of stuff, in that it's... I would say that, actually, people will give the Brighton shit for being just standard fantasy. They're very much like the knightly sort of fantasy. Oblivion was just generic fantasy as shit. They wiped out so much of the Imperial's culture in Oblivion that I do an entire video on that. Fucking Todd Coward. Back to Daggerfall. So Daggerfall, bunch of warring city-states. There were like 44 of them. Yeah, 44 fucking kingdoms fighting each other in a landmass that's... What was it? It was like it was pretty big. It's probably about the... I don't know. It's large. Trying to scale in-game maps to real-world physical locations / the lore sizes. Plus, Daggerfall was just huge. The game was pretty big. It could have been even larger in terms of the total landmass, but that was the physical limitations in let's see. I was born in 1994, and so was The Elder Scrolls 1 Arena. I want to say Daggerfall came out 2 to 3 years later, so 96, 97. It might even came out a year later, because, games just did that back then. So, this knight, she was from a kingdom that existed, because there were 44 of them, but because of the way that Daggerfall ended, so Daggerfall had, I think, 7 endings. And in those 7, and I think there was also an 8th ending, but that's just the player trying to use this artifact that unmade them. Long story. The 7 endings included stuff like different kingdoms winning, so they took political power in the region, a necromancer ending up turning into a god, the orc chieftain king dude getting the scepter and getting to create an orc kingdom, this zombie lich dude getting to finally fucking die, and some other ones. I can't remember what else happened. But anyway, what ended up happening is called the Warp in the West. Time broke. The dragon broke. The dragon god of time, Akatosh. It's complicated. I'd have to go into a lot of metaphysics, but basically, dragons had to come in and fix the problem. They're called Jills, these specific dragons that fix time breaks. Basically, time broke. People... Wait, okay, so... Time is broken multiple times in the Elder Scrolls. I was about to say a reference to an older time break that lasted like 1,084 years or something. But you know what? Fuck it. Let's say that the same kind of shit in that happened in this. For reference, the kind of stuff that can happen, you can give birth to your own father. Time is an illusion. So yeah, 44 kingdoms became 4, so the knight ended up without a kingdom. It's a lot of fucky-wucky time shit happened. So, what is a knight without a kingdom to serve, and also lands to own? Well, no longer a knight, but she had training, and also I'll dive into it more in a specific video about her, but yeah, just displaced out of time and space for, I think it was 2 days. And so she went crazy as shit. She went off to become a hedge knight, and things didn't go well, ended up eventually in prison, and just wasting away for a while, because I want to say the time gap between Daggerfall and Morrowind is about a decade, I want to say. So I'd say she was in prison for about 7 years. She spent a few years being a hedge knight, maybe a little bit longer. A lot of overlap with Obrick after absorbing some elements from him. Let's go on to Philip, the little boy that wants training from Obrick, and Philip's mother, who I don't think has been actually named yet. She's just called Philip's mother. Women aren't well written in most games. They're afterthoughts in a lot of games, which is always bullshit. But yeah, there's a bit of hinting and teasing that she and Obrick are they're gonna do the thing. They're gonna commit the fuck upon each other, because she's like, oh, my boy Philip could use a dad, because his dad died in the fires of war. And then, they're all awkward tee about it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Obrick is gonna... If I remember what any of his fucking fighting moves were, I'd make a sex joke about him using it on her. He's gonna use that piercing strike on her. Let's go with that. So yeah, I'm thinking that Philip is gonna get a new daddy, and Philip's mother might eventually get named. I don't see her getting named, though. I feel like his romantic interest gonna go the entire game without an actual name. So yeah, that's fantastic writing. I can feel it in my bones. And I think that's about it. That's all my notes. So yeah, I'll see you next time.